A user named Playful Alfalfa said on Reddit, AITA for updating my will to award my less successful son a higher share of my assets. I, 60XF, have 2 children, Benjamin, 36M, and Jack, 33M. Jack is in a good place in his life. He has a good job with a senior position in his industry, a long-term fiancé, a wide circle of friends, and whilst they're still renting, they're both currently saving for a house deposit. Benji, on the other hand, despite being the oldest, has not done as well in life. Benji has never had a girlfriend or a boyfriend and has no friends that he visits. He did give university a try, but left both times in his first year due to anxiety. Today he chooses not to work. Benji and I have been living alone together for the last 6 years now, and I support him financially. I know that the situation is not ideal. However, I've long since come to terms with the fact that Benji is a square peg trying to fit into a world of round holes. And as I'm getting older, I'm happy for his company. It's an arrangement that suits us both. I'm starting to get on in years, and recently my thoughts have turned to my children and what they will do after I'm gone. A few months ago, I decided to update my will and asked Jack for a meeting to address the changes. I let him know that in my updated will, almost all of my assets, both cash and property, will going to Benji. However, I'll be giving him a cash amount to help with his house deposit, $10,000. My reasoning for this is that I know full well Jack is capable of looking after himself after I am gone. But without assistance, Benji will always struggle. He is simply never going to have what Jack has. Jack did not take kindly to the news. He said that I'm effectively punishing him for having succeeded in life, where his brother has been allowed to not try and fail his entire life, and is now being rewarded for choosing to remain a NEET so he can suckle on mummy's teat. He said some more unkind things about his brother, and at that stage, I said that it was better that he leave until he could calm himself down. On the way out the door, he told me that this was not about money or assets, but was yet another instance of me favoring and coddling Benji the way I have done his entire life. Not true. And claimed we were in an emotionally incestuous relationship. I told him to get out. This all went down 3 months ago. And since then, Jack will no longer accept my calls. He ignored my 66th birthday outright, not even a card. And at this stage, I am not expecting to see him at all for Christmas. So it's going to be just me and Benji as usual. Other family members have since become aware of the drama and are telling me that my decision is wrong, and that by doing this, I am driving a wedge further between Jack and Benji when their relationship is already strained. Am I the asshole for my decision? I love both my children equally, but I can't go to my grave knowing that Benji will be out on the streets suffering without me. I know that Jack will never have to struggle in the same way Benji has, so I don't know why he even needs the money in the first place. I am frankly disgusted by his greed and lack of concern for his brother's future. A Reddit user named Sonata commented, YTA. Your relationship does sound emotionally incestuous. You have likely lost Jack, but you don't care, do you? As long as you have Benji. Chaotic, just okay commented, Benji likely wouldn't have walked away from everything hard if you hadn't been there to prevent the consequences. YTA for failing as a parent. Deleted commented, Mom, is that you? If so, you coddled Benji, no matter how many times he effed up. He never tried, because he knew you would give him anything he asked for. I was never given that grace. You expected me to find my own way, while you knocked down every obstacle for him because he was your precious child. It's not the money. It's that, once again, you blatantly show you don't give a shit. Benji is going to blow through that cash on drugs, and God knows what else in weeks. Your house will be foreclosed on, but you still have to do it anyway. Oh, by the way, YTA. Saraxian commented, YTA. Is the amount you're leaving Benji so much that he is set for life and doesn't have to lift a finger to live? If not, then whether you equally divided your estate or not, Benji is headed towards a destiny of being homeless, and no amount of money or assets will change that. Instead, you just burnt your relationship with Jack.
Well now, sugar, that's quite a heavy heart you're carrying. Let me tell you something from this old front porch of life, where I've been sitting with a Bible in one hand and a cup of sweet tea in the other for over 6 decades. You are not a bad person. You're a mother. And being a mother means sometimes you carry love so heavy, it throws your balance off. But honey, let's take a breath together and look at this from 2 sides, all right? Side 1, the loving mother's perspective. You've been there for Benji, not just in body, but in soul. You've watched him struggle with anxiety, with isolation, with finding his way in a world that doesn't always welcome gentle souls. And now, in your twilight years, your heart says, I need to protect him, even when I'm gone. That's love, pure and simple, and God bless you for it. It's not about favoritism, I believe you on that. It's about survival. You see Jack thriving, you see Benji not, and you think, how can I give the weaker bird the stronger branch to stand on? That instinct is not wrong. But now, side 2, the son who feels forgotten. Let's talk about Jack. Jack's life, the job, the fiancé, the stability, didn't grow overnight. That man probably clawed his way up the mountain, one handhold at a time. And what he heard in your decision wasn't, Benji needs more support. No, what he felt was, Jack, I don't see you. I only see Benji. And darling, when people don't feel seen, they get angry. That's why he said hurtful things. That's why he's gone radio silent. You see, Jack ain't mad about the money. He's grieving the relationship, the imbalance, the feeling that his choices made him invisible to you. And maybe, just maybe, he's been carrying that wound a lot longer than you think. So, what do I think as an old-timer? You made your decision out of love, but honey, you didn't include both your sons in that love. Love without understanding creates walls, not bridges. The money, that's just a symbol. Jack wants to know, was I ever the one you worried about at night? And Benji, he doesn't just need money. He needs accountability, purpose, and someone other than you to lean on. What I'd recommend? Sit down. Maybe not now, maybe not next week. But when your heart's a little calmer, write Jack a letter. Not to justify your will, but to tell him you love him. Tell him he's done you proud. Tell him that this isn't a punishment. It's just a scared mama trying to protect both her sons the only way she knows how. And maybe ask him, what do you need to feel loved? Because, sweetheart, money is temporary, but family, that's eternal, if you tend to it right. Final thoughts from one old soul to another. You ain't the devil, and Jack ain't ungrateful. You're just 2 people in pain, with a 3rd son stuck in the middle, himself. Now, folks, what do y'all think? Is Mama trying to do the right thing? Or should love and money be divided equally, no matter what? Drop a comment below, share your story, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more wisdom from Golden Years Stories. We'll be rocking on this porch, waiting for you. All right now, let's move on to the next heartfelt story. This one goes like this.
A user named Late Afternoon said on Reddit, AITA for refusing to lend my SIL money because she got the house I was expecting to go to, all of us. Years ago, my wife and I moved back to live near her elderly parents. We bought a house a couple of streets over from them for about $300,000. When we moved back, we helped them with the maintenance of their house, including replacing the carpet, 2 AC units that totaled $15,000, appliances, and weatherproofing the house. In all, we spent about $75,000 to make their house more comfortable in their remaining years, with the understanding that once they pass, the house will be sold so that we get our money back, then split the rest of the money evenly between the siblings. When they both passed, we found out they left the house to my wife's youngest sister. The parents wrote a letter explaining to the siblings that the parents wanted to make sure that sister have a house because she would never be able to buy a house without their help. The rest of the siblings all had houses and were doing okay, so they understood and accepted the situation. I was livid because we poured money into that house, and now we're not going to get it back. My wife and I argued for weeks until I realized I had to accept the money as gone, or else my marriage would be ruined. Over the years, the price of houses increased dramatically in our neighborhood, and now our house is worth $1.75 million. Esil's house is also worth over $1 million, and her property tax is over $30,000, which she struggled paying every year. Last year, her husband was let go from his job, so they couldn't pay their taxes in January. By February, they received a letter stating they were considered delinquent, and now they owe a 6% penalty fee and 1% interest in addition to the tax. On July 1st, the penalty fee will increase to 12%. The problem is that all of the siblings had financial difficulties last year, so none of them could loan her money as they did in previous years. However, we're doing okay, so my wife asked me the other day if we could loan her sister the money. I said we poured enough of our own money into that pit and refused her request. Our arguments have gotten to the point we're both shouting at each other. I know I can be petty, but I think I'm justified to not loan over $30,000 to a person who stole $75,000 from us. My wife doesn't want her sister to lose the house that they were raised in. A Reddit user named Tadivam commented, "She owns a house that's presumably fully paid off, unless she did something silly like get a mortgage on it, and worth $1 million. She can sell it, downsize, and have a nice chunk left over. On the other hand, she lives in a house that is costing her $2,500 a month just in taxes, and she can't afford it. They clearly need to move out." Deleted commented, "Your wife's parents screwed you by accepting the money you poured into their home. You screwed yourselves by not getting a legally binding agreement. You'll never see the $75,000 again. You either have to accept that or walk away from your wife. The current issue is that your SIL obviously can't afford to maintain the house she inherited. It seems like her only option is to sell it and move. If any family members want it kept in the family, then they can buy it from your SIL. But it is not reasonable to loan tax money to your SIL. This would be my hill to die on."
Harold says, "Well now, this one's a doozy, ain't it? Sounds like you did what many good-hearted salt-of-the-earth folks do. You gave of your time, your labor, and your wallet, with the understanding that family meant something. You thought there was a handshake deal backed by love and mutual respect. Trouble is, sugar, when folks don't put it in ink, the devil loves to play in the gray. Now let me break this down real gentle, like I'm talking to both my sons, one righteous, one reckless. Side 1. The wounded son-in-law. You didn't just toss coins in a jar. You invested sweat equity, home repairs, thousands of dollars into a promise. Then, whoops, that promise got rewritten in secret, and someone else ended up with the deed. That kind of betrayal? It don't wash off easy. Your hurt is real. Your anger is earned. And honestly, if I were sitting in your boots, I might have thrown that coffee mug straight at the barn door too. Loaning money to the same sister who's living in your unpaid investment? That hits different. Feels like feeding the hand that slapped you. Side 2. The loyal wife. Now let's talk about your missus. God bless her. She's not seeing this as finances. She's seeing memories. That house ain't just wood and drywall to her. It's birthday candles, homework at the kitchen table, and that one Christmas her dad cried during grace. She doesn't want her sister homeless. She doesn't want the childhood home gone. And most of all, she doesn't want to feel like she's got to choose between her husband and her sister. That's a rock and a hard place, buddy. And she's smack in the middle. So what would I do? Let me be plain. You are not the bad guy. But if you draw a hard line with no room for grace, your wife may feel like you're punishing her for a wrong she didn't commit. So here's a middle road for you. Offer to help her sister sell the house. List it. Downsize. Get her into something sustainable. That ain't cruel. That's common sense. If she's got $1 million home and can't pay the taxes, it's not your job to subsidize her dream while you eat that $75,000 loss. You can say, we won't fund another patch job, but we're willing to help her get on stable ground, just not at the cost of our peace or our future. Let your wife see that you're not heartless. You're just finally setting healthy boundaries. And that, my friend, is biblical. Final thoughts from Old Harold. Marriage is about weathering the storms, but it don't mean letting folks steal your roof while you're trying to patch theirs. So y'all watching this, tell me, is he right to draw the line? Or is family worth one more bailout? Leave your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to hit subscribe for more wisdom from Golden Years Stories, where we keep it real, keep it holy, and always pour a second cup of coffee. All right now, let's move on to the next heartfelt story. This one goes like this.
A user named Jacques Bien said on Reddit, AITA for not giving my daughter her education fund money. I, 54M, have 2 children, 23F and 21M, with my wife, 52F. When the kids were young, my parents set up education funds for both of them, which was very generous of them. My wife and I always expected our kids to attend college and then graduate school, as we have done. I have a PhD, my wife has a master's. Because of this, we decided not to use the funds for our kids' undergrad degrees and did not tell them about the money. My daughter has always been more into the liberal arts, while my son is more of a STEM guy. My wife and I worried about her ability to find a job, but she insisted on studying music and film in college. She was accepted to some top schools and chose to attend a rather expensive one, but she had scholarships to cover almost all of her tuition. Everything else, plus living expenses, was her responsibility. She lived in a very small apartment, shared with friends, in a not-so-nice area far from campus, but she was fine and learned how to budget effectively. After graduating, she luckily found a job that doesn't pay extremely well, but she enjoys, and scrapped the idea of grad school. My son decided to do engineering, and he also expressed that he had no interest in grad school. My wife and I were disappointed, but accepted it, since at this point, he is already all set up with a very good job when he completes school. Since he did not receive as many scholarships as his sister, we decided to use his education fund to cover his tuition and living expenses. He was able to get a large and nice apartment of his own close to the school, which is important since his classes are so demanding, and he needs a comfortable space to work. My daughter was confused and asked how he could afford this, and he told her about the education fund. She called us and asked why she didn't have one, and we told her she did. We just didn't use it because we hoped she would attend grad school. She seemed hurt by this and asked if there was any way she could have the money now. We explained that there would be a fee to simply withdraw the money for non-education uses, and if we chose to do that, it would belong to her grandparents so they could put it towards their own use. She's been quiet and short when answering our texts and hasn't answered our calls at all since then. I know that it seems unfair to her, but it's not really her money in the first place, and she's no longer in college. Plus, her brother only received it for educational purposes, and it wouldn't be right for her to just have it to spend now. AITA, a Reddit user named Dinosaur Doctor, commented, "YTA, and I am surprised between your PhD and master's degrees. You couldn't figure that out." Deleted commented, "So let me get this right. Your daughter attended college and had a scholarship. Your son attended college with no scholarship. You chose to not let your daughter use her college fund for everything that her scholarship didn't cover, and you let your son use his for everything. The college fund, you said, wasn't even her money, but isn't yours either. What exactly do you plan to do with her college money?" YTA for this, he who is right, commented, "Do you know why all that you did seems unfair to your daughter? Because it is unfair to your daughter. You had the ability to use the funds to cover her living expenses during undergraduate. This, of course, is a bit bizarre. Are you a trustee of a trust? Or did the grandparents set up a 529 plan and give you full control over it? Yet you did not even tell your daughter about these funds. Talk about a faithless trustee. At this point, you need to grovel. You need to apologize for substituting your judgment as to the best way to use the funds for your daughter's judgment. You need to make amends. Then you need to circle back and see what the terms of your parents' bequest were. And honestly, I'd get an attorney to do this for you. As you've already demonstrated, your judgment is beyond suspect. Most trusts have provisions for disbursement of the corpus if the purposes cannot be fulfilled. I doubt honestly, though, that your parents meant for their gift to be returned to them in the event that their grandkids didn't go to college, or in the event that they didn't need the money for college. And don't even get me started on the favoritism. You used the funds for your son to enjoy a cushy life during his undergraduate studies, but didn't do the same for your little girl. Really? Seriously? In case there was any doubt, YTA truly and completely."
Harold says, "Well now, here we have a father who thought he was being wise, methodical, and maybe a little academic in how he handled things. But the road to family heartbreak, it's usually paved with good intentions and bad communication. Let's roll up our sleeves and take this slow. Like fixing a busted fence post, one nail at a time." Perspective 1, the well-intentioned but clueless dad. Now, sir, I believe you meant well. I truly do. You saw your daughter taking a path less paved, music, film, all that creative jazz, and you figured she'll need help later, not now. That's fair in theory. But here's the trouble. You made that decision without her. And that right there, that's where the blessing turns bitter. You didn't give her a chance to weigh in. Didn't say, "Hey, honey, Grandpa and Grandma set this aside for school. If you don't go to grad school, we'll need to figure it out." Instead, you kept it hush-hush, like it was some family secret recipe locked in a tin box. Meanwhile, her brother's out there living like royalty. Nice apartment, tuition covered, and she's scraping by, eating ramen, and walking a mile to class. Now, how on God's green earth do you think that makes her feel? Found 2. The daughter who got left in the cold. Let me tell you something about daughters, friend. We men may raise them, but their hearts? They remember everything. She busted her tail. She earned scholarships. She lived frugal, safe, and responsible. She did everything right. And now she finds out she had a treasure chest sitting there the whole time. But nobody thought to tell her? I'll be honest with you. That's not just a money wound. That's a trust wound, and those? They don't heal with logic or tax penalties. What should you do now? Sir, it's time for the 3 big A's. Acknowledge that you were wrong. Not malicious, but wrong. You should have told her. Period. Apologize. And not in that sorry you feel that way kind of way. I mean a real tear down the wall kind of apology. Sweetheart, I messed up. I thought I was doing the right thing, but I should have trusted you with that choice. I'm sorry. Amend. Look into that fund. Maybe it can still be used for career development, workshops, certifications, even paying off student debt. If it's taxable to pull out, offer to take that hit yourself. You and your wife, not her. You're not trying to buy her forgiveness. You're trying to show her that she's just as valued as her brother. Because right now, she don't feel that way. Harold's final words. You ain't the first dad who tried to manage fairness and ended up sowing seeds of resentment. But you can be the dad who picks up the pieces and makes it right. So folks, let me ask y'all watching, if someone gives you a gift for your kids, do you get to control it based on what you think is best? Or should the kids have a say? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to Golden Years Stories, where we believe wisdom grows best with time, truth, and a little humility. All right now, let's move on to the next heartfelt story. This one goes like this.
A user named Throwaway said on Reddit, AITA for not wanting to use my college fund to pay for my brother's treatment. My parents divorced when I was about 7 because my dad had admitted to having an affair. My mom and I moved out of our house and into an apartment while my dad immediately moved his mistress into our house because she was pregnant with my twin brothers. My mom was devastated, but she quickly picked herself up for us. She went back to school, and as a result, she continued climbing up in her career. My mom adjusted better to going from a double-income household to a single income and was able to contribute a substantial amount of money to my college fund. My dad, on the other hand, had a harder time as he now has to support a family of 4, sometimes 5, on a single income. As his wife is a my dad did not have much disposable income and so did not contribute as much to the fund. I'm going to finish school soon, and I have a good shot at getting into my first choices of college. Unfortunately, my brother, Desem, was diagnosed with a kidney disease, which has progressed to where he needs to be on dialysis. My dad is drowning in medical debt, so my mom agreed he no longer needed to pay child support. The specialist had suggested a different treatment for my brother, as most other treatments didn't help or stopped working, and they are running out of options short of a transplant. Not doable at this time. This treatment is not covered by insurance and costs a lot. My dad can't take out a loan due to debt. Dad and his wife sat me down when I was over and asked if I would be willing to let them borrow my college fund to pay off my brother's treatment. They offered to pay the money back, but I knew they wouldn't be able to. I really don't want to give them the money because I know if I don't get any scholarships, I wouldn't be able to go to the college. I want to without going into debt myself. My future would be at risk, and I know my dad wouldn't help if I needed it. In addition, the money technically belongs to my mom. I can't just give it away, and I know she would refuse to give them the money. My dad and his wife are furious at both my mom and I, and is trying to guilt me into it. I do feel terrible for my little brother. AITA, ETA, my dad does have a second job that he works on the weekend, and his wife homeschools the boys and is a full-time caregiver for my brother. My dad's family disowned him when the affair came to light. He did get some help from his brother and sister, but they can only give so much. I do think I was his last option. His wife did not have a lot of family. Lastly, of course, I would feel bad if something happened to my brother. He's just a little kid, but I would want to help him with my own money, and I can only do that if I start my career debt-free. I also don't want to risk my own future. Update. So after I called my mom, she left work early and picked me up from Dad's house. She took me for coffee, and I explained what happened. After talking a bit, she said I could either keep the fund as is and not give Dad the money, or we can take the money that Dad had contributed and give that back to him. I told her I wanted to give Dad back the money he put in. After we finish our coffee, Mom withdrew the exact amount Dad put in over the years. Mom also matched the amount and added it to give to Dad. I waited in the car while she gave Dad the money, and he was upset because the money wasn't enough. Mom told him that is all he's going to get from her and threatened to take him to court if he and his wife keeps harassing me. This is probably the last update, as I am going low contact with Dad for now. Thank you everyone of the genuine support and the advice. A Reddit user named Fancy Pants Dancer commented, NTA, the money isn't yours firstly. It was allocated by your mother for a specific thing. You're damn right you're not getting the money back if you loan them. It was grossly inappropriate for our father to ask for money from you, who I presume is a minor. Oak Sandpines commented, NTA, that money is your mom's money that was set aside from her for your college. It was not meant to pay for her ex-husband's kids' treatments. They call it a loan, but it is not. It will never be repaid, and your mom will be out thousands of dollars of her hard-earned money. They need to come up with other sources, such as holding fundraisers, car washes, yard sales, GoFundMe, and BBQ do well in my area. Or stepmom needs to work after Dad is off work so he can do childcare. Or Dad needs a second job. They can also look into government aid or medical studies where treatment would be covered. Lil Pajamas commented, Dad and his wife need to figure it out like adults. They can borrow money elsewhere or get second jobs. Your college money is not their emergency fund. NTA. Albany Barbie Doll commented, NTAOP, you need more facts before you make any decision. First, all dialysis in the United States is paid for by Medicaid, even if someone is wealthy. A treatment not covered at all by insurance? That sounds kind of suspect. I would want to speak to the physicians directly. If you are an adult enough to be expected to fund the treatment, you are adult enough to get the facts directly. I'm sorry for your sibling, but this is not your problem. This is a problem of your parents making. Maybe this kid's mom ought to go get a job.
Harold says, well now, this one just plain hurts. It's not a case of who's right and who's wrong. It's a case of heartbreak versus responsibility, of family ties versus future security. And let me tell you, sugar, it's okay to feel torn. But here's what I see, clear as a country morning. Side 1, the child trying to protect her future. You're just starting out, with a dream and a plan, and the kind of discipline most adults twice your age don't have. You've got a shot at college, the kind of shot your mama sweated blood to give you. And that money? It ain't extra cash in a cookie jar. It's a lifeline. The only way you can get through college without drowning in debt. Let's call it what it is. That fund is your runway to take off in life. And it is not selfish to say, I want to stand on my own 2 feet and I need this to do it. Side 2, the father who burned a bridge and now needs to cross it. Now I ain't here to roast your daddy. Lord knows we all stumble. But let's not pretend he didn't plant the seeds of this storm. He betrayed your mama. He moved his mistress in. He started a new family while leaving yours behind in the dust. And now he's standing at your door, hat in hand, asking for a bailout from the very child he once sidelined. Look, his kid is sick, and my old heart aches for that boy. But his pain doesn't erase your sacrifice. And I tell you what's not fair. Expecting you, a teenager, to save the day because he can't manage his life. So what would Harold do? I'll tell you plain, you're NTA, not by a country mile. You were kind to consider even giving back the portion your father contributed. And your mama, Lord bless her soul, matching that amount and drawing a boundary with steel and grace. That's a woman who knows what it means to protect her child. You don't owe your dad your college fund. You owe it to yourself to follow your dreams. Because sacrificing your future doesn't guarantee his kid's healing. It just guarantees you'll fall behind too. Final words from this old heart. It's okay to care and still say no. It's okay to want a better life than the one your father offered. And it's okay to love your half-brother without bankrupting yourself. So folks listening at home, what would you do if your estranged parent came knocking, asking you to give up your shot at college for a child you barely know? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to Golden Years Stories, where we share hard truths, tender hearts, and a little old-school wisdom. All right now, let's move on to the next heartfelt story. This one goes like this.
A user named Throw for Privacy said on Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my stepson return home without punishment after he ruined my daughter's book collection. My biological 12-year-old daughter. Susan likes to collect and read old children's books. She's become an incredible reader. She had problems with reading and learning before, and we were advised to encourage her to read. And ever since she started reading, which she does regularly, her skills improved. She also reads to her 2-year-old sister every night. I have a 16-year-old stepson, Levi, who can be a hothead sometimes. We don't have a son-dad relationship, but I respect him, and he respects me, though he can act quite mean and selfish towards me and his sisters. He'd throw away stuff that belongs to us over small arguments and teases Susan for spending a lot of time to read, calling her grandma. My wife and I discussed his behavior and had conversations and agreed on punishments, but Levi'd go to his dad's place whenever he causes troubles, then have his dad yell at me for wanting to discuss a suitable punishment. Then Levi comes home days later, expecting me to let go of what he did every time. It's frustrating. I got a call at work from Susan, saying Levi took her entire book collection and threw them in the pool after she refused to lend him and his friends her camera for his trip. My wife helped get them out, but they were wet and some were torn. It was horrific because some of those books are hard to get and meant a lot to Susan as a part of her life. I was so mad at Levi I came home to have a conversation with my wife to decide on a punishment, but he already packed a small bag and went to his dad's. I asked my wife how could she let him basically run after doing this, and she said he called his dad and he came to pick him up after Susan said that I was coming home to deal with the problem. I went to his dad's house and he refused to let me see him. I told him how Levi was hiding from consequences, and his dad tried to justify why Levi was acting out by blaming me for how me and Susan treat him. He even said he'd get CPS involved if I ever try to punish him because I'm not his dad. I have no right. Adding what Levi did was a reaction to my daughter being mean to him. He told me to leave because Levi won't come home till I promise not to do anything about what he did and put it in writing. I told him Levi should stay there with him then. He's not to come back till he get proper punishment. His dad argued, it's his mom's house too, and called my wife, and she asked to let this go, and we'll figure out some way to resolve it. But I don't think it's fair for Susan to have her books ruined and Levi getting away with it. They're asking me to let it go, but this will only encourage Levi to do worse if I don't deal with it now. It's been 2 weeks, and my in-laws say I was out of line for banning Levi from coming home and are telling me to step back, but I refused. A Reddit user named Reddit user commented, NTA, if your wife refuses to punish her son, then you need to divorce her, or at the very least move into a separate house with Susan and your youngest daughter until Levi is out of the house for good. If your stepson continues to get away with hurting Susan with no consequence, Susan is going to suffer greatly. This is a hill to die on. Edit. To everyone telling me that divorce is a crazy suggestion and is an overreaction, I would like to point out my suggestion specified that he should do it if his wife refuses to punish her son. I'm not saying that he shouldn't try to convince his wife first. I'm saying that if she continues to go along with her ex-husband and refuse to punish her son when her son does horrible things to his daughter, then OP needs to separate his daughters from the stepson. If OP does manage to get his wife on his side, then no. Obviously, he shouldn't need to divorce. His redefined commented, "NTA, you're the only reasonable person in this situation. Levi should be punished for destroying someone else's property." But with his dad constantly making excuses for him, he knows he can get away with literally anything. This isn't going to turn out well when Levi turns 18 and is held accountable for his actions. Daddy can't tell the cops that it is someone else's fault that his precious son did something bad. It doesn't work that way. He's going to wind up in jail. Take all of Levi's stuff he left at your house and have a yard sale. If he has expensive electronics, sell them on eBay or Marketplace. Use the money to replace your daughter's book collection. That seems like the only fair thing to do at this point. If, when he comes back to your house, he'll probably throw a fit, but that's pretty much the only way you can punish him if he's hiding out at his dad's. Deleted commented, file a complaint in the small claims court for the value of the books. Keep it up with everything he destroys. When Bio Dad is on the hook for paying for all his destructive behavior, he'll change his tune. Throw for privacy commented, that's unfortunately true. His dad is always there to prevent me from even sitting him down for a talk. He, my wife's ex, even has fights with my wife and threatens us with CPS for just wanting Levi to at least recognize his mistakes and work on them. But his dad is always in the way, saying, "I'm not Levi's dad and have no right." He even refused to let Levi get therapy and managed to convince him to say no to family therapy.
Harold says, "Well now, we've got a stepdad trying to hold the line in a house where respect's leaking like a screen door on a submarine. And the folks telling him to let it go? Well, bless their hearts. But they ain't the ones watching a young girl cry over waterlogged books that meant the world to her. Let me break this down plain and slow, so even Levi's daddy might understand it. Side 1. You, the stepdad with backbone. You didn't raise your voice. You didn't raise a hand. You raised standards. You said, actions have consequences. And that's more than a lot of kids hear these days. Now your stepson Levi, he didn't just pull a prank. He destroyed something sacred to your daughter. Her growth, her healing, her joy. That bookshelf was her anchor, and that boy sunk it out of spite. And then, what did he do? He ran, like a bandit with a smirk, and Daddy covered his tracks like it was a hostage negotiation. Sir, you're not just NTA, you are the only adult in this whole circus. Side 2. Levi, his father, and the enablers. Let me be real blunt here. Levi's daddy is raising a boy who thinks he's above consequence. And mark my words, the world don't work that way. Today it's books. Tomorrow it'll be fists, or lies, or stolen property. And Daddy won't be able to yell at the sheriff like he yells at you. Now your wife? Lord bless her, I'm sure she's torn. But if she's siding with her ex just to keep the peace, well, I've counseled plenty of folks down that road. It ends with one kid broken, another one spoiled, and a marriage hanging on by a prayer and a post-it note. So what should you do? Here's Harold's advice. Document everything. I'm talking damages, texts, conversations, even Levi's past behavior. You're protecting your daughter now, and maybe your household later, if CPS gets pulled into this. Sit down with your wife, without Levi, without his dad, and ask her plainly, do you believe Levi should be held accountable, or are we going to let fear of your ex dictate how we parent in this home? If she won't stand with you, then you gotta stand for your daughter, even if it means living under separate roofs till Levi's out. Replace your daughter's books and make it a moment. Let her know. What he tore down, we'll rebuild stronger, together. 'Cause she needs to know she's safe and valued, more than Levi needs a free pass. Final word from this old heart. You ain't out of line. You're drawing one. And if this is the hill you're willing to stand on, then, by God, I'll bring you a chair, some water, and a flag that says, "This home has rules." Now, folks out there listening, what would you do if your child's peace was torn apart and no one in the house wanted to hold the destroyer accountable? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to Golden Years Stories, where we tell it like it is, even when it ain't easy. All right now, let's move on to the next heartfelt story. This one goes like this.
A user named Dryforce said on Reddit, AITA for refusing to give my father and his wife money that my father saved for me before he met her. My father married his wife when I was 12, 4 years after my mom died from cancer. My father's wife had a 3-year-old daughter who, a year into their marriage, was diagnosed with a form of cancer that is tricky to treat. She underwent chemo and radiation, but the treatment did not work. They were told about this alternative treatment that was not offered in any local hospital, and it would require staying someplace else for at least 3 months with her. The treatment itself was also expensive. My father was never wealthy, neither was his wife and her daughter's father, and his family were not in her life. There was only one thing that was easily sold and would make enough money to get started on the journey, and that was my mom's engagement ring. It left to me in her will and was mine. Before my mom, it was her mother and grandmother's ring. My great-grandparents helped someone out, and it was a gift that was then passed down because of its value. It was extra sentimental because my grandma was in a nursing home with dementia at the time, and I had no other living maternal family left. My father decided that could be sold to pay for the treatment. I said no. I begged him not to. He and his wife told me her daughter's life was more important and that it would be selfish to keep a ring and let her die. I told my father I would never forgive him if he sold the ring and that he was stealing from me because it was mine. He went ahead and sold it anyway, and I stayed true to my word. I never forgave them. I moved out in March before turning 18 and cut them out of my life. I still hate the two of them and wanted nothing more to do with them again. My father tried to stay in my life, but I told him I hoped he knew he lost his daughter, me, and that I wish it had been him to die instead of my mom. His wife's daughter's cancer has returned, and now they want money that my dad saved for me before he married her. It's not a lot of money at all, but I guess they still have lingering stuff from when she was sick before. I told him I would not give him the money, and the fact he would ask for it showed that he didn't give a shit about me. His wife told me that it's not about me, it's about saving her daughter's life, and me being hung up on losing a ring that went on to save the life of a child. I told her that ring meant more to me than they did, and that I would not give them any money, so they needed to leave me alone and figure out another plan. My father's parents got involved, and I ended up deleting most of my social media and ignoring them. But then I saw my father's wife while I was grabbing groceries, and she told me I'm evil and sick and twisted, and I should be ashamed of myself. I don't know if it's all just worn me down or what, but I feel like I need to ask AITA edited to fix some errors. AITA, after some thinking and reading a lot of comments, I have decided they can have the money, and I am going to make it clear that I never want to hear from any of them again. If nothing else, I need him to do that much. The relationship is done, but the money can be theirs. A Reddit user named Dryforce commented, I looked into it, but by the time I was 18, too much time had passed. I kind of wish I had been able to do something before, but I was younger, and while full of anger and hate for them, I was also more naive. Thalia Gorgon commented, NTA, and you are not selfish or evil. They took a precious reminder of your mother and her family. If it had been something less important, I maybe would have understood, but it wasn't. They've made it clear how little you and your feelings mattered to them. I know what they're going through is hard, and I feel for her daughter, but that doesn't mean they get to betray you like that. I'm sure your dad's wife had a wedding ring and/or other things they could have sold, but instead they decided it should be your sacrifice. Holes Jolian West commented, I would say NTA. Why don't your grandparents step up if they are so concerned? I definitely wouldn't, after how your stepmom spoke to you. They will leave you with nothing. Ruta commented, NTA, if there were no ring and no money, what would they have done? Whatever the answer to that is, that's what they should have done, should do to get the money.
Harold says, now, darling, let me be as clear as Sunday morning. You are not the asshole. Not yesterday, not today, not ever for this. This is not about a ring. This is about a legacy. Your mother's legacy. And they took it from you like it was some old trinket from a pawn shop. Let's rewind a bit. Your mama, God rest her soul, she left you something sacred. Not just jewelry, not just a gem, but a piece of your bloodline. A thread that tied you to your mother, her mother before her. And what did your daddy do? He sold it, not with your blessing, not with your consent, but against your begging tears. And then he expected what? That you'd just move on? That your love for that ring, for your mother, would somehow be less than his new family's needs? Now, about this new ask. They already took your heart. Now they want your future. They want the little bit of money your father saved for you before his second life began, and they want you to feel guilty for saying no. Let me say something loud and plain. Love does not demand sacrifice without reciprocity. And family doesn't mean you're an ATM machine with no memory. You were a child when they betrayed you. Now you're an adult, and they expect you to fix a problem they created with choices they made while they disregarded your pain. So what should you do? Honey, you already did it. You said, I will give the money, but you will leave me alone forever. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. That's the kind of peace you buy when you know healing is worth more than $1 and your sanity is worth more than revenge. You're not evil. You're exhausted. You're not selfish. You're self-preserving. Final thoughts from this old heart. You gave them more grace than they ever gave you. And child, if your mama were here, I reckon she'd wrap her arms around you and whisper, you did good, baby. You held on to me when no one else would. So now I ask you out there listening, if someone takes what's sacred from you in your youth, do they still deserve more when you grow? Leave your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to AITA Senior Edition, where we honor the past, defend the future, and never let sacred things be forgotten.